Okay, with pleasure.
Afreilach Purim, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and setting things up over here. Really appreciate it. By the way, it's a good time to mention that Yosef Kamenetsky and Moshe Sofer and Menachem Roth and everyone else sitting over here work on this the entire year. They put in a lot of hours, and they should give them and everyone else simcha, nachas, and brachas and yeshuas.
Amen.
I had a mashgiach that once told me that the way people dress up when they're little, that's how they, in other words, the Bachrim, the way they would dress up as Purim, he noticed later on in life that's what they became. So it was their inner emotions that really showed what was doing in them. So when you dress up like a Rebbe, I'm wondering why it never happened. So I guess I started too late. You know what I mean? If I would have dressed up this way as a Bacher, you never know. It could have been, but I guess it just takes time. We've mentioned a lot of times that people may be coming in or out. This is Purim night, and we're in our house, so Baruch Hashem, you understand that. The Chidush Yarim says that every single Yom Tov we give something away for the Rabbi Shalom. On Pesach, what do we give away? We give away our bread to Kodesh Baruch Hu. On Sukkot, what do we give away? Give away our house to Hashem. And on Shavuos, what do we give away? On Shavuos, we give away our sleep. And on Purim, what do we give away?
Money.
Our money, right. I think on Pesach also give away your money, but we give away our brains. We give away our das. In other words, on Purim, the idea is that we should act, besides for the union and getting drunk, but included in that is that we act and dress totally irrational. Totally without any, maybe you want to take the camera around and check the table. You want to do that? Okay. So on Purim, the idea is that we give away our das to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which in a way is sometimes, or ought to be at least, a greater Mesiras Nefesh than giving away even your house and your sleep and just about everything else that goes along with it. Now, sometimes I wonder, how can you tell when it's Purim? Right? How can you tell when it's Purim? How do you know that it's Purim? If you have a bunch of people sleeping by the table, so that looks like Shir, right? So how do you know that it's Purim? Somebody came over to me tonight. He said, I see you're disguised as a tzaddik. I thought I was a little insulted by that comment. What do you mean I'm disguised as a tzaddik? He said, they would have never recognized you. Really? Should I be insulted? All right, besides the kasta, how do you know that it's Purim? So I said, in every Jewish home, I think, this is the way it goes, okay? It's like 2 weeks before Purim, you start buying the nash for the Mishloach months. And you're not allowed to touch it. You understand? So you have to come into your house, and there's like, 35 different kinds of chocolate bars on the table, and God forbid if you touch, you're messing up there's an exact amount here, and it has to go into so before Purim, we have to all go through this process, which I imagine is like a hachana and a preparation for Purim, where you have all this food in your house and you can't touch it. Then it comes Purim, and that you have so much nash in your house, you don't want to touch it because it's coming out of your ears. So, why can't it ever be, just the exact amount that I want? Why does it go so quickly from the point where you have all of it and you can't touch it to the point that you have so much that you don't want to touch it? And in essence, that's really what we have to work out on Purim, and is part of what we're looking for and part of the way we're growing. If you ever noticed, all of the mitzvahs of Purim begin essentially with which letter, Rabbi say? In the Aleph Beis? A mem. With a mem. Yes. So how many mitzvahs of Purim begin with a mem? There's Mishloach Manos, Matanas Lev Yainim. Keep going, Megillah. Very good, Maishi. Go ahead. Keep going. There's more. What other mitzvahs on Purim begin with a mem? Machzis HaShekel. Okay. Machzis HaShekel. No. Okay. Next. Yeah. And Mishteh Yayin. Right. And Mishteh. Now the rule is not a very big Baal Digduk, but the rule is that a word that begins with a mem and the mem is not part of the shoyrish. It means to project. Okay? What is a shliach? A messenger. Right. And a mishalech is the one who sends the message. What is a loiva? Anyone?
Someone the borrows.
Right. A malva is someone who lends. A mem at the beginning of the word always means it projects from him to someone else. Like may ha-bayis, from the house, from him. The mitzvahs of Purim all begin with the mem, even though it's only when the mem is not part of the shirish, but it means it projects us. That if we handle Purim right and treat it properly, every moment of this very, very holy day, it moves us, it projects us, it keeps us going in the right way. Which means that Purim, to a certain degree, is like Yom Kippur, and Purim you have to change your life to a certain degree. On Purim, the way things are, it cannot stay. It cannot stay exactly the way things are. Of the video of internet, you mentioned kicking the middle. Cats to kick. I'm not just saying. I'm just saying. Maybe if we keep this here all day, it'll be. So out upon him. So on Purim, you have to move, which is part of the reason that we say that anyone that comes and anyone that extends, that you just give. Yet because it's different than our nature throughout the entire year. Your nature throughout the entire year, depending on who you are, is someone comes over to you and says, "Give." Why should I give? But on Purim, you have to we move into a different phase. And that's why the mitzvahs of Purim change. Okay? So in other words, maybe there's someone you haven't been talking to all year because you're upset at that person. You have to remove the barrier. Move right through it. Make the connection. There may be someone in the course of your life that there was some kind of a sour relationship. Step aside. Move forward. A person is depressed. He feels that the world is coming to an end. You gave up. Whatever you tried all life, whatever you tried to do, you're trying to get married, you're trying to start parnasa, you tried to make shalom bayis, you tried to get along with your kids, you tried to get along with your in-laws, it just never happened. And it came to a stop. So on Purim we are told, move. Keep it going, and just move. Okay? So, suppose you have, we've said the story many times. And I'll tell you, there's a great story that Heinrich Teller says. It's about these two brothers that were not talking to each other. Okay? Let me just show you how this is done nicely in a Shalom Bayis fashion. And we have some very, very sensitive recording equipment. And it's okay in the Ezra's Nashim if you talk, but just bear in mind that many, many people will hear you. So that's okay. That's fine. It's 100% fine. We're not getting the, just letting you know. Okay, in any event. So, I don't know if you heard what I just said. Did the Ezra's Nashim hear what I just said? Said we have some very sensitive recording equipment, and your voice is now being projected to many, many hundreds and hundreds of people. Just saying, so you can maybe be careful what you're saying. So Al Kopanim, as we proceed on over here. So the point is that we move. The point is on Purim, things don't stay the same. It says, please sit down, Zev, make yourself comfortable. And you can't. You got to make a decision that whatever I was stuck in the mud till now, my life moves on. Oh yeah, so I was telling you, so he has a story about two brothers that were not talking to each other for years. And one Purim, one of the brothers decided, I'm going to make shalom. He lived in Eretz Yisrael, and he went out and he bought the most fantastic mishloach manos. He bought the most expensive wine. Maishi, what is the most expensive wine like? You don't know. All right. But he bought the most expensive wine. He bought the most expensive. What is your favorite chocolate? What's your first name again?
Free.
What's his first name?
Mendel.
Mendel. What's your favorite nash? Favorite nash, Mendel. Okay. So let's say when you go into the grocery with your mother, what do you say? No, like and if you want, if your mother wants to get you quiet, she has to give that to you. Well, what is it?
Schachter.
Okay. So whatever it is, he bought the most expensive nash and really went all out because he wanted to make shalom with the brother. He didn't speak to this brother. They had a shtickle Yerusha issue over many, many years, which sometimes happens to brothers, very unfortunate. Another good thing on Purim, which is if you didn't speak to your brother for the last 10 years, doesn't make a difference. Now is the time to say, we're moving, we're changing. Let's give some nachas to the neshama and shemayim, and it's time to come together. Often by Yerusha, somebody said there were two brothers, they didn't have a penny to their name. But a shul, they made up, we're not going to talk to each other. Because let people at least think we have money, if we're going to talk to each other. If we talk to each other, forget it. Everyone will realize that we're a bunch of schleppers. So, okay. So he buys the most expensive mishleach manas you can imagine, and he gives it to the son. And there are tears streaming from his father's eyes. And he says to this son, take this mishleach manas and deliver it to my brother, please. That's important. And there's a letter over here. And in the letter, essentially, he writes that, you see, I did my best with this Mishleich Manas. And this is just a facsimile. It's an expression of my emotion. It's how much I want. We should really, really get together. Please do it. And the kid is so nervous, and he's on this bus, and as he's about to get off the bus, sure enough, he trips, and this big, beautiful Mishleich Manas, and the wine, and the cookies, and the almonds, and the chocolate-covered raisins, and everything in slow motion, crashes on the ground, spreading all over, near a sewer, and near dirty water, and the kid is petrified out of his mind. He said, this is it, the life mission that we had, and it's all over, it's gone, I blew it. The kid said, my father said, I have to put this together regardless. So what does he do? He scoops it all up from the garbage, and with the broken piece of glass, and he picks up the broken, scoops up some of the wine with someone in a handkerchief, and kind of squashes it into a leftover bottle, takes the squashed chocolates, blows off the dirt, puts it all together, and it has an interesting aroma because it picked up some of the street over there. And he brings it to his uncle, and he knocks on the door, and the uncle opens up, his nephew that he never saw in his life. He says, I'm your nephew, and my father gave this to you. Now already the stench is like taken over the whole house. And he goes, your father gave me what? And he opens it up, and he takes out the garbage and the dirt and the everything and the broken pieces of wine. And sure enough, there's a letter dropping in dirt and chocolate. And the letter says, through all these years, I thought it was time for me to tell you that the way this Mishleich Manas is, what I put into it, is really what I feel about you. And the uncle went mad. He went mad. And he took this kid and began to shake him like a lulu. Poor kid didn't know what hit him. I mean, after all, he went through all this trouble to put it all together. Then he went and emptied the contents of his kitchen garbage, wrote back and said, tell your father, this is what I feel about him after all these years. And the kid comes home, and his father's pacing back and forth. He doesn't know how his uncle is going to take to this. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And he comes back, and he says, I brought the Shlach Manas. He says, you did? Every single piece you delivered? He said, I even added like some pieces, couldn't really get all the mud off. He says, and he sent something back. And he wrote a note. He goes, Rabbi Shalom, please, maybe this is a turning point in our lives. And he goes and he opens it up, and there's the garbage, the kitchen garbage, and other things I don't want to mention over here. And there's a sign that says, this is what I think about you. And the brother this is the to all these years, he tried to make the move. And said, what else could he do? So comes the next Purim, he says, forget it, I'm not going to try. But then he says, I'm not going to live forever. I'm going to come up. And I know how much pain my father is going to be in that we weren't talking to each other. He's going to ask me if I tried. And I'm going to say I tried, and it didn't go. Is that enough of an excuse? Maybe I have to say I should try again? He said, no, I'm not going to try again. I'm not going to try again, it's only going to make things worse. It just so happened, but he did say, Rabbi Shalom, I can't try because I see it's not helping. But please, I did what I can and it didn't work. You do what you can, Rabbi Shalom. You know how to put this together. A while later, he had to send Mishleich Manas to a certain client of his. And he also put together a very, very nice Mishleich Manas, gave it to the kid and said, just be careful this time, okay? And the kid goes, and the kid is so nervous, and he mixed it up somehow with last year's address. And he rings the bell of his uncle, and he goes, uh-oh, wrong bell. And he turns around to run, and the uncle opens up the door and says, not so fast! Pulls him back in and says, you going to try to get away with this again this year? And he opens it up, and he takes out, gorgeous Mishleich Manas. And then there is a letter that he wrote to the client. And in the letter that he writes to the client, he says, look, I hope it's the beginning of a new relationship between us. And the ups and downs, we may not agree, we'll work it out. And it was just the right words. It was so perfect. And this brother bursts into tears. And he puts together this beautiful Mishleich Manas, and he says, send it back to my brother and tell him I want to talk, I want to talk. Too many years of silence. The kid doesn't know what hit him. He comes back and he goes, I gave the Shlach Manas. And he gets back this real emotional letter. He goes, who's this, the client? He says, no, your brother. My brother? He says, I got to tell you what happened 2 years ago. And he tells him the whole story, how it fell into the mud and how things crashed. And the two brothers eventually get together. So that's what Purim is. Purim is, the world falls apart around me, and I say to B'nai Shalom, take over. Take over. I've said very often the story, I read this in the Churva Shul that was destroyed in 1948. So the people from the old city of Yerushalayim thought that was it, they were going to die, and they weren't going to make it out alive. And they came running, and they were in the Churva Shul, and everyone had a little bag of food. It was the only food that they had. And it could very well mean that they were going to die. And nobody wanted to share their food. No one knew, I need it for my family. We may be here for days, for weeks on end. And suddenly there was this huge explosion. And the walls of the shul came tumbling down. The only thing that was left, remember, there was the arch. And everyone ran, and it looked like it was all over. And someone yelled, say Shema Yisrael! It's over! It looked like it was over. And one guy goes, and he rips open the food, and he says, everybody come and take! He says, what are you doing? He says, we're going to die anyway. Let me at least, I have to go to the Shemayim. No one held my food and didn't give it to anybody. And he made such a roishim that everyone else just opened up their food and gave it away. Look, we're dying anyway. May as well just take it. Just take it. It's over. There's no point holding it for ourselves. I have a certain achrayas. I have a certain responsibility to my family. It's over. It's over. Give. Just give it all out. Lamaisa, I don't want to get into the full details of the story, that we're all saved. Probably because of this inyan. So you see, Klal Yisrael has this kayach, that when it looks like the world is caving in on us, instead of locking us in more, we open it up and say, take everything. And that's really what Purim is. Purim is, even if you're depressed, even if you're frightened, even if you're scared, and you feel that the world is caving in on you, and that the roof is crashing in, so what you say is, Rabbi Shalom, you know what? It's crashing in? Here, take it. Give. I'll make up with anybody. Whatever you want, Rabbi Shalom. Every single year, well, the second year that we have this costume. And I try to make my beard white, see? And so we use this, powder. And whoever was helping me, I'm not going to say who, but whoever was helping me mentioned, he said, guess it was my kids. He said, every year we need less and less powder. It's coming on its own. And they say there was a little girl, she's washing the dishes next to her mother. And she notices out of her mother's tichel, a little white hair sticking out. So she goes, Ma, where do you have that white hair from? And the mother says, every time you don't listen to me. And every time I get a call from your teacher about how you're behaving, it's another white hair in my head. And the girl says, how come grandma has the full hair, full white hair? Right. That's the case. Okay? So the years go on, the years are moving. And at one point, you have to make a decision that life comes with a gift of a certain amount of Purim. And we have to say that this is the Purim, that I'm finished with settling scores. We have to show our inner essence. The Chassam Sofer says, take note at the end of the Megillah, what does it say when the story is all over? What does Achashverosh do? He reinstates his tax. Why is this so important that he reinstates the tax? Why is that in reinstating taxes? And the answer is because the toughest thing on the whole Megillah on Achashverosh's side was the tax cut. And why did he do the tax cut? Because he was hoping that Esther would agree who she is. Because as you know, he had no clue that Esther was Jewish until there was a big sign, don't come to king unless called, and Esther came anyway. Then he knew she was Jewish. But before that, he did not know she was Jewish. So he thought that if he is going to cut the taxes and everyone will come over to, oh, thank you, people will start talking. Because of our woman in the palace, the taxes were cut. So he cut the taxes. As soon as the whole Purim story is over, the whole events, the unbelievable hashgacha, what does Achashverosh do? What's his response? Reinstating taxes. Because cutting taxes was very, very hard for him. Achashverosh obviously was a Democrat. Now, so what did Mordechai say? Achashverosh, when he was in trouble, what did he do? He went against his nature, he cut taxes. The Jews, when they were in trouble, what did they do? They said, we're going to daven for each other, we're going to cry for each other, it may be all over. Open up our homes, we're finished, take what you want, you can live with each other. So Mordechai and Esther said, right after Purim is over, we're not going to give this up. That moment in the Churva Shul, where everyone said, you know what, I'm not holding it for myself, I'm not hoarding it for myself, take what you want. Mordechai and Tzaddik said, the danger of Purim is over. We're going to keep the Mishloach Manos. We're going to keep this attitude that we have, that we are willing and ready to be Meiser Nefesh ourselves, one for another. And just to understand what life is all about. One of the reasons we get dressed on Purim is because we want to break that barrier. It doesn't make a difference who's in front and who's back, or you or me. This is who we are. And that's all. Somebody says there was this guy, he was very, very stingy. And whenever somebody called him, he had his wife forced him to call someone to eat. So when the guy came to eat, he kept telling him, he would try to talk. So the guy shouldn't be able to listen to what he's saying. So when he would come in and he would say, the guy would start eating the pulp, he would say, how's Moshe? How's Yankel? Oh, it's fine. How's Baruch? I'm going to turn that before the time you finish talking. What? Got to run. Shoo. Didn't eat anything. So one guy came in, he said, how's Baruch? Died. What's doing in the city you came from? Exploded. How's Yankel? Died. Finishes the whole meal. He says, everyone died. He says, when I eat, everyone is dead. You understand that? On Purim, we say the world doesn't exist in terms of no restrictions. No behind, no future. This is the only thing that exists is this day. That's now. Don't push yourself to the front. Don't fall behind. We've mentioned many times the story of the famous crook of a shikker. You remember that story from last year? Crook of a shikker, the shikker of Krakow, used to drink for 60 straight days, I think. And they asked him why. He said, is Haman mad? There was one day he was going to give to kill all the Jews. How can you kill all the Jews in one day? But Haman was scared in case it'll backfire, it'll become a Yom Tov. And Haman didn't want the Jews to have a 30-day Yom Tov or a 60-day Yom Tov. So he tried to push it all into one day. He said, I'm going to show that Haman. 60 days I drink. That's the way it is. It says that Purim is over the Zman. Purim is not limited to time limitations. All the Yom Tovim will be bottled, whatever that means. Purim will not be bottled. Purim is, what does it mean Purim won't be bottled? Because this feeling of Purim, no restrictions, take what you want, it's okay, no bad feelings, we're happy, we're smiling, everybody. This Bechina of Purim is really what Mashiach is all about. Purim is what's going to be La'asid Lovely. Why aren't people happy? Because they're guilty or they regret something that happened in the past. They're worried about the future. They're jealous about someone else. They feel there's no lack of respect. On Purim, we say, forget it. And in a way, it's a Kadosh Baruch Hu testing us. Are you ready for the future? The Rabbi Shalom is testing us on Purim. Are you ready for a world of Geula? A world where there's no hard feelings. A world where everyone just gives, where all doors are open and there are no locks and you come in. Are you ready for this world? And we have to prove to Hashem how I would behave in this kind of a world. Famous story where Reb Chaim Volozhin was giving out like 1 ruble at a time, and in came an old man. He said, give me 2. He said, why should I give you 2? I give everyone 1. I would love to give you 2, but I have to give enough for everybody. He says, if I tell you Advan Torah you never heard, will you give me 2? He says, okay. So he says to him, Mordechai was frightened because he saw a terrible gzeira, and he saw it was sealed the Shemayim, what's going to happen to the Jews. So why didn't he give up? So it says because he went to see if the Gzeir was written in blood or the Gzeir was written in ink. When he saw the Gzeir was written in ink, so he knew it was going to be Yeshua. So he said, how did Mordechai know it wasn't written in blood? So Chaim said, I don't know. Okay, 2 ruble. What about the answer? That 3 ruble. Okay, it's 3 ruble. So he says to him, when it said, Kosav ala Yehudim le'avdam, how do you spell le'avdam? Lamed Aleph Beis Daled Mem. It's really Loi B'dam. He saw the Ksav al Yehudim is not with blood, it's with ink. It's with ink, you could erase it. So he was very excited, and he said that's what Eliyahu Navi told Mordechai. And he walked him to the door. Later when he came to the Vilna Gaon, he told him the whole story. So the Vilna Gaon said that you know how this person knew it? The same way Mordechai knew it. Because the one who told you this word was Eliyahu Navi. So we know, the Grosh should say there was Eliyahu Navi, there has to be something deeper over here. In those situations in life where you think it is la'avdam, where you think it's lost, it's over, I'll never be able to put it together. From this point, it's too late. It's Eliyahu Navi that says, Loi B'dam. It's not with blood. There's nothing that is sealed. And everything can be turned over. You know, there was a famous Rebbe, they say about a lot of Rebbes, that when he used to smack, right, really hard, don't get scared, you're going to take a little more wine to do that, but when he used to smack very, very hard, that person had a, Moshe, come close. The guy said, somebody said that when you were young, he said, I had my Kitta Dalid Mechutin, my 4th grade Mechutin. You mean your 4th grade Rebbe? You know my 4th grade Mechutin. Why is he your 4th grade Mechutin? He said, his right hand and my left cheek were Mechutanim. Okay, so now, so we ask, with this Rebbe, whenever he smacked someone, it was a very good simon. It was always a simon brach for that person. The guy had a good year. And if he ever, and once was a story where there was a big wicked person in town who was making trouble for everybody, and he praised him one day throughout anything. The guy was so proud. The guy did not have a very good year. So he said this Rebbe sometimes saw if there are dinim on a person, if there are certain prosecutions on him, by yelling at him, he took it off. And there were times in life where he saw this guy was a big Rasha, things were going his way. By praising him, he lost it. The Baal Shem Tov says that once was a guy, he once showed there was a kid riding a horse and he was like king of the world. He said that guy's imagining he's king now. He doesn't realize there was Taka decree he should become king, and he just used it up by getting totally involved in it. So now, I once heard of Pshat, my good friend Rabbi will think he said like this, that we have to get drunk until we don't know the difference between Ar Haman and Baruch Manachai. Right? In life, someone curses you out, you're angry at him. You don't think he's giving you a bracha. Baruch, someone benches you, he praises you, you're happy at him. He says, you have to say whatever happened to me in life is good.
That's the truth.
The Ar Haman, the Baruch Marachai, it's all the same bracha. It is all the same bracha. So Rabbi said, let's wrap things up, because somebody still has to be sober enough to be able to drive you home. Purim means you have to move. You have to change your mood. Purim is like Yom Kippur, right? It has the greatness of Yom Kippur. But it says Yom Kippurim. So which day is greater? Purim or Yom Kippur? Yom Kippurim, mean it me. So that means that Purim is greater than Yom. Why is Purim greater than Yom Kippur? Because I want to ask you something. One reason. What is harder to do? Is it harder to fast when you're not in the mood of fasting, or is it harder to smile when you're not in the mood of smiling?
Harder to smile.
It's definitely harder to smile when you're not in the mood of smiling. And that's why the avodah of Yom Kippur is greater than the avodah. As a matter of fact, some say that the Suda of Purim is the Suda of Yom Kippur, because you connected then. What you missed out because you couldn't eat, it connects zeh b'zeh. And this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do. That's the Mordechai, right? The fact, why is there Avelis? Okay, it's Purim. Why is it Avelis? Why is there? Right, we don't know that. Why are some psukim in the Megillah in the Lashon of Avelis? So Litvak should have Simchas Yom Tov, right? So why aren't there more holis in Allah? Okay, but in all due respect, the idea is that whatever our natural mood is, whether you're a Litvak or a Chassid or an Ashkenazi or Sephardi, the whole Yalila, what's the song called?
Yalili.
Right? It has to be that I'm ready to change. Mordechai was always ready to change. The feast, everybody's in great drunk, free meal, we're running, free vouchers, Mordechai said, no, be somber. Right? Mordechai is taken on the horse, he's happy. Afterwards, everyone wants to be happy. He says, Sakri v'tanisai. And afterwards, and everyone is still petrified about what happened, they say, stay away from Achashverosh, he's a madman, he's a tough boss to work for, I'll chop your head off, literally. He comes up with Levush Malchus, this is my job now. Mordechai always has the power to change who he is. I want to conclude with the following story. That a man once came to the Kashnitz Magid, and he didn't have a red cent to his name. And he came into the Rebbe and said, my family is starving. There's nothing in their house. They're crying. And the Rebbe says to him, you brought me Mishlach Manas? You don't understand. My family is starving. I need a bracha. Did you bring me Mishlach Manas? The Rebbe said, get him Mishlach Manas. What kind of Rebbe is this? So he runs out. And he runs into the store. He says, do me a favor, have some apples? Does he have money? He says, I'll pay you back sometime. When? As soon as I can. But look, if it's not, it's Purim. All right, take a few apples. He runs to the next store and he gets a bottle of wine. You have money? No, I'll pay you as soon as I can. When is that? As soon as I can. But it's Purim today. Fine, take it. He runs to the Rebbe. Okay, Rebbe, here's Mishleich Manas. Rebbe, what about the bracha? You don't need a bracha anymore. And on his way home, he's trying to figure out why he spent time coming to Kashnitz. He says, wait a second. If it worked to give Mishleich Manas to the Rebbe, at least let his family have something. So he stops off in the bakery and he buys some bread and hamatash, and the guy says, okay, 6.34. He goes, a little bit short. How much short are you? Well, how much did you say it was? 6.34. I'm 6.34 short. Look, I'll bring it in for you as soon as I can, okay? But if not, what did he say? Everyone together? Purim today. Fine, take it. And he went into the next store. He said, come on, a bottle of schnapps, a bottle of wine. Okay, 9.44. I'm a little bit short. How short are you? 9.44. I'll pay for it afterwards. The guy says, I don't know who you are. He goes, come on, it's Purim. It's Purim Hayayim. So he finds a whole suit and he brings it home, and the family, first he comes in, he runs and screaming, it's Purim today! They thought the father really lost it, and then he shows all the food, where'd you get this from? And they sit down, they start singing and they're dancing, and they're all singing it's Purim today. They never had such simcha in their lives. Suddenly, bang, bang, there's a bang on the door. Don't open up the door, someone's trying to stop our simcha. They open it up, because there's an old peasant who lives down the block and he's bleeding. They stop everything, they run, and they give him first aid, and they wash him, and they rinse him, and they help him, and they nurse him back to health. And he tells them that his son just beat him like crazy because his son wants to know where his treasure is hidden, and he's not going to tell him, and after this he'll never give it to him. And he takes them deep into the woods and he shows them where the treasure is hidden. And a while later he passes away, and they had a ksav that he gave them the treasure. So they came back to the Kajim Samagid, and he brought a big mishleich manas to him every single day. So we hope that nobody gets hurt here in the process. But the reality is that this is the day when you have nothing, whether it's emotionally, whether it's physically, whatever the situation is going on in your life, and you say, I am going to be happy, it's Purim today, then what is coming is tremendous Yeshuas and Simchas. Maybe a niggin, one niggin maybe?
One niggin.
Should help that whoever is listening at any venue, those we should all give a bracha to each other, that we should be zaycha to a good geben shiar, to mechilas havaynis, to simcha, should be refuah shaleima for all the gedolei Yisrael, for all the tzaddikim, and the Eibush should help. We should have nothing but simcha and nachas and brachas and yeshuas, and we should see the true end of the Purim story, the Mehera.
Amen.
Freilich and Purim.